Quack. 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 Well then, hello. I am your host, Adam Shamail.
And I'm Aaron Schroeder.
That is right. And this is the Quack 12 podcast, the most official Oregon Ducks podcast on the web. But is fear.
Hurdy hoo.
Aaron Schroeder, we did in fact win a football game. Opposite of popular belief, we won a football game against a living, breathing team. Not only that, but a team we've never beaten before.
Well, right. We had never beat him before. That part caught me off guard. I didn't realize that.
That's right. We've played him 3 times, twice in the Chip Kelly era, and then in that first game under the Mario Cristobal era, where he was promoted from OC to head coach. All 3 times were basically I wouldn't say quite as goofy as this last game we played, but they were all very
just straight
eventful.
Up losses.
Well, they were all crazy though. Had something going on. I remember that one under Cristobal, we threw something like 3 picks in the first half, but then rallied back behind Justin Herbert. I remember that was crazy.
I don't remember that. Are you telling me I have seen 3 games against?
No, you saw 1. You've seen 1.
Okay, great. And it was that one.
This was it was.
But that was early on.
This was season 1 for us.
Okay,
that was the end of the Willie Taggart era.
So then there's actually a great chance I did not see.
I mean, you used to not watch many of the games. Now you watch every damn game, which is nice. You probably watched this one. I bet you it's funny back.
Because seasons for us, seasons 1 through 3 are you telling me about how the game went. Mm-hmm. I didn't need to watch it because you were going to give me the play-by-play.
But you did have beautiful takes. You had hot takes, though, very quickly.
Yeah, and now I still have hot takes, but they're tampered, I think, a bit more because I've been given the gift of knowledge from all these years of doing this damn show.
We'll get into the picks and see if they are tainted or not later.
Let me ask you this, because you brought it up, and we might as well talk about it.
Okay.
What do you think is worse? 3 interceptions in the first half, or 4 sacks?
Well, I'll tell you this,
because I know which one feels way more aggravating.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna look up that game while we're talking, just to make sure to see the weirdness. But for me, at least that 2017 game has the benefit of being like, look, we just lost our coach. We just got a new coach. Our star player, Royce Freeman, he's sitting out. Our Justin Herbert's still a young QB.
He was still 50-50 on the what's going to happen when that ball leaves the hand.
I mean, let's see. Justin Herbert. Yes, only 2 interceptions. I think we fumbled a damn ball or something like that. I remember a pick 6 right before the half. So apparently not
which game?
Interceptions. This is the Mario Cristobal, yeah. Okay, so apparently not as bad as I remember, but I remember just nonstop chaos. The first half, especially, us just looking so terrible and having to try to crawl back.
Yeah,
I think this game is a little bit, even though we won. So I mean, overall, it's a good thing.
Yes.
But I think this game was kind of harder to swallow, harder to stomach, because our talent is off the charts still. I mean, our O-line clearly has some serious problems, which we can get into. And actually, I think we we found a way to make this offensive line work for us a little bit more in the second half. We did mix things up. Let me tell you this, Aaron. I don't know if you noticed this.
I mean, you're fast forwarding pretty quick.
Yeah, we could take our time.
You've said 3 sentences, and I feel like I have 8 subjects that I could talk about with each sentence because this game had so much happening around.
That's right. Yeah, let's get your thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, God, you kind of hit on a bunch of things. You made my sparks go off, so I could say just because I think this game was proof positive that just because you have individually talented players doesn't mean they work well together.
Absolutely.
Also, does this offense have a issue with hubris? Because we've got even though it happened on special teams, I still count him as a part of the offense.
Yeah.
When
Noah Whittington, when he
ran that football back, are you kidding me? Everyone and their mother who doesn't pay attention to football have seen clips of dudes losing points, losing games because they do exactly what he just did.
One of our most famous clips against Utah, probably the most famous clip, Oregon versus Utah, is when Utah, they take a huge reception to the house, or you think it's to the house, except he does exactly what Noah Whittington does. He drops that ball on the 1 yard line. He's celebrating in the end zone. Fortunately for us, though, one of the Ducks is really looking at it, and you can see him. He looks over at the ref, and he realizes the ref's looking like
what's happening.
Ref can't say anything, but he's just kind of looking like, yeah, I haven't blown the whistle. I'm standing here,
Yeah.
And we take it 99 yards the other way and literally do a flying V from it. So it's like one of our famous plays is us reversing this. So I can't believe it almost happened.
They even mention the only reason why that touchdown stood was because one of our players,
Jaden Lamar,
had the same realization and went, oh, wait, this play is still alive. And so he picked, and I feel like I even saw, because as soon as he was doing it in real time, I saw it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you idiot, you just did that. And then I feel like I watched the player behind him kind of have the same reaction because he looks over at him and then quickly goes to pick up the ball because he's like, this is about to get returned.
if he wouldn't have picked up that ball, or if the ball would have rolled out of bounds, that would have been just like the other team gets the ball at their own 20 or whatever. So that's one of the things you made my brain think off of. To stick with the offense, because that's where the issue is. I think this whole we obviously have an issue with our offensive line falling down really easily. Well, they get put on top of pretty easily, I feel like. But they're certainly blowing assignments and coverage, or and blocks.
But because of their weakness, it felt in this game like if we were going to throw the ball, it was going to be fast.
Yes.
And if we had a chance to throw the ball far, we were also going to always go for that. Both things leading to, although we were scoring points in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is keeping our defense on the field, which is only going to be bad news as we get closer to the playoffs because they're going to be more exhausted. All we need is the offense to just burn more time.
If our O-line plays like it did against Idaho and basically through large chunks of this game, then we don't need to worry about the playoffs anymore. But the nice thing is...
all I'm thinking is this team in the national championship. Because obviously the pieces are there. We can play strong enough. Tell me this is something I don't know. Comparatively, where is Boise State in difficulty range for the rest of our season? Is that one of our toughest games?
That's the question. I mean, I think it's certainly in the top half of tough games easily. Boise State is, a lot of people, especially after our close game, a lot of people are going, well, Boise State, because one group of 5 member, which is basically everyone outside of the power, I guess we're calling it 4 now. Everyone out of the Power 4 conferences, the Big 10, the Big 12, ACC, SEC, they all get an automatic bid the winner of that league gets to go to the playoffs, and they get a bye. But group of 5, the top ranked or whatever you want to say, not quite ranked, but the chosen group of 5 member, which is what Boise State would be in the Mountain West, they get into the playoffs. Like there's a guaranteed spot for them. A lot of people are saying Boise State could be that team. Like they're at least a favorite. So that would mean, they are a playoff team. They are less talented than us overall. When you look at their schedule, some of their tougher teams are like Wazoo, maybe I guess you can throw Oregon State in there. Like they actually got a pretty cushy schedule. So that bodes well for them looking good at the end of the year and it being a benefit for us. As far as our schedule, still the hardest games. I mean, everything's looking a little harder with that offensive line, but I am feeling optimistic that we're going to get better in that department. But
I am too. I'm keeping the trust that it's getting figured out. Week 5 is when I worry.
When we play Ohio State is what you're saying? Or
no, just after 1 month of these kids getting burnt down, either they're going to be stronger or they're not.
This is huge, man. So one thing is Nishad Strother came in and played. He did not play against Idaho, I believe, but he came in and he played the guard spot. He actually switched. He played some left guard, some right guard, which meant that Poncho, he was able to go back to center, which is kind of his truer position. He did look a lot better there than the guy, or not a ton better, but I think better. Everything gelled better with him there instead of Pickard, who is a walk-on. He's trying his hardest. He's doing well, not doing terrible. People are probably throwing a little too much hate on him because he's a walk-on.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
it's more like the chemistry is off, But when Poncho moved to center and Strother was playing like some guard and then everyone else was there, that unit played a lot more in the second half. And I feel like they were playing pretty well. Like we were getting a push. We were protecting Gabriel a bit more. And the only bad parts that would come would be stuff like, oh, well, Poncho, freaking snapped the ball before, because he couldn't hear early, and then it hits Dillon Gabriel in the chest. He's like, oh shit. And then he gets that first down, which is good, but then he fumbles the ball. Like stuff like that.
Oh my God. Okay. Just real quick. Now that we've talked about the sacks. The
sacks are scary. And I think some of it is Dillon Gabriel. I really want to ask Hythloday about that. Like he needs to be adjusting a little bit, but it's the O-line. Yeah.
Also, I didn't he seemed a little slow to me when he did run.
I mean, he's not. I get what you mean. I mean,
I might be confusing him with my boy over on Seahawks because I knew if I watched a Seahawks game, I was going to accidentally switcheroo some feelings.
Oh yeah,
can you hear this?
Basically, Geno Smith, the little dog. Yeah, we're keeping it in. It's cute.
God,
why is he so pissed?
No, this is excitement because he was ready to go on his morning walk.
Oh, well. I'd take those away from them immediately.
Yeah, and our floors are paper thin, so you get to hear all the wood and the barking. It's beautiful. Anyway, maybe, okay, so I'm going to take that one back. I don't know much about that except for the fact he shouldn't be getting sacked.
His pocket presence was pretty rough. And, some part of it needs to be like, okay, like this is my blind side. So I'm going to have to trust that tackle for me not to get destroyed. Like there's some element of that, but also like someone like a Bo Nix, we shouldn't just compare Dillon Gabriel Bo Nix all day, but someone like Bo Nix last season, which was his second season in the system, mind you, but he had a lot more like, oh, I need to step forward. Oh, this guy's coming at me. I need to get this ball in my hand quicker. I think Dillon Gabriel looked more comfortable. I also think it's hysterical how many people online are being like I literally saw comments being like, well, put in the backup because you can't be worse than this clown playing QB right now.
Oh, that's so ridiculous.
Which is so ridiculous. Look at his stats. Like Aaron, he wasn't perfect, but Aaron, his stats, 18 of 21, So he missed 3 passes. Sure, 2 of those were those deep passes that would have been nice for him to connect on.
Yeah.
But 3 of those, so he only had 3 incompletions for
Okay.
243 yards. He threw touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, and he ran in for a touchdown. Like, that's certainly not bad.
I mean,
any fumble.
they're idiots. We all realize that they're doing that just because it's going to get clicks.
Yeah.
But
I
think he was. I just don't think he was prepared for the 0.75 seconds less time he has to make decisions.
Yeah.
Because all I am watching.
This is his second official game.
This is a game.
In Oregon, yeah.
Yeah. This was a game where I watched Boise State play defense the way I play defense in the video game, which is zone blitz, just blitz. Just if you, I think our weakness has been discovered. It is going to get constantly tested.
Well, you gotta keep in mind, too, though, is that there was that moment. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was, but there was the moment where they were blitzing us, because they figured, yes, this is what you do.
This is how it works.
And then I want to say it was Trayshawn Holden who got that. It was either Trayshawn Holden or Evan Stewart. I want to say Holden, who got that long pass off that quick slant because they were just blitzing us, had no one in the back, and so all Dillon Gabriel had to do was I agree with you that it's like a 0.75 second thing.
Yeah,
because it's not like Dillon Gabriel has a terrible deep ball. He connected with a couple. Yeah. I
mean, the one note that
with Trayshawn, he needed 0.75 seconds just to be able to get it in there, and then it went off all the way.
Yes.
And they did the high five.
Yeah. The big note that I took away from Hythloday to be watching with him was that he can sometimes throw about 5 yards less than what he needs to be connecting to.
Yeah.
But in this game, he's hitting it exactly where, or he's just kind of over a little bit. Where I'm like, okay, well, that's the thing I don't have to actually worry about because it seems like they figured it out.
I think it's all about protection.
I think it's just a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just missing that extra amount of time he's gotten used to from them playing each other where everybody's a little bit softer. So he's not getting bum rushed constantly.
I think so too. And what I was going to say about this is you were talking about the schedule. The nice thing is it could line up really well. One thing is if our offensive line was playing as bad as it's kind of been playing, but these were our 5 starters and that's it, then yeah, I'd be a little concerned that it's I don't know how much better we're going to get. But we're waiting for one person who's supposed to be a starter, Matthew Bedford.
Right.
We still got Dave Iuli, who will, hopefully be good enough to put in the rotation. Maybe not, but who knows? But that's at least one player we want to try to get in that will hopefully be an improvement and veteran presence. But the other thing is, so we have, and we want these players to be, healthier. We have the Beavers coming up. Beavers didn't look great, but, teams that are not as good as us on paper have been looking pretty great against us these last 2 games. But so it's if we can just go to Corvallis, hopefully beat survive the Beavers, who haven't looked great on offense. After that is a bye week. And then after that is UCLA. It's on the road, but UCLA looks, as of right now, knock on wood, not very good. So, but that is the equivalent of we got this week to heal up, then the Beavers, and then a bye week, and then another week. So it's basically 3 weeks to get people healed, to get this offensive line working together a little bit more, hopefully. So it's really let's try to survive the Beavers and then get to the bye week could help us out so much. Just who cares what the score is? Let's just get 3 wins. I still have total faith in this team that they could be really good.
It's 12-0 team.
I love it.
Look, this is the truth. I'm not lying. It's a 12-0 team. The game plan currently, though, scares the shit out of me because it seems like the game plan is, what I want to say before I get into the game plan is, it's funny to me how much time the weird and wild side of the offense, how much talking time it takes away from how amazing our defense is.
Yeah,
and now the game plan seems to be, okay, well, we can't really burn clock. And also, I don't know why they're not giving it to James Jordan constantly. That dude should be running
Jordan James,
3 out of every 7. Thank you.
I mean, Noah Whittington didn't look terrible, but Jordan
no, I'm not trying to cast shade on anyone. I'm just saying they should be running with that man 3 out of every 7 plays. He should be constantly running. That being said, the game plan appears to be we can't really burn clock successfully as an offense, but our defense is so good, we can help the other team burn so much clock and yet never score. Because we can keep them from that as well.
Yeah.
That our offense can just do quick strikes. So it's never a blowout, but it's a win.
I definitely think I agree. There was
it feels like we are dependent. We are on the defense.
As of right now, I think, and I think you saw this with Dan Lanning, especially because he's so aggro, that I think there were moments, particularly one big moment, where he realized, like, this is a big game. We don't want to fucking lose to Boise State. We got everything ahead of us. So I'm going to play like a defensive team. So, like, when he was backed up in his own territory and it was a tie ball game, he ran the ball 3 times when old Dan Lanning would have been going for it deep. And if it's close, even against Idaho, if it's close to fourth and short, even if we're in our own territory, who cares? Instead, he ran the ball 3 times, punted, we stopped them, and then the punt return. Like, that's like, it's all right to rely on your defense if you have confidence in it. The times that our defense seems to be getting burned the most is when there's these sudden changes that make it really hard. Like, obviously, when Dillon Gabriel fumbles in his own end zone, that's going to be really good for Boise State. Or near his own end zone, and then when
so you're saying
also we there was the one where we fumbled the ball. Patrick Herbert fumbled the ball.
Okay,
and then it was one play, boom, Boise State scored. Yeah,
right. I just wanted to make sure that you were prefacing that the issues with our defense is our offense.
I definitely
putting them in bad position.
Yeah, I definitely think it's that.
Sure.
But
I don't think I don't think there's a fault in our defense. I think they are the strongest defense on the field.
I mean, for the last 2 weeks of players that we've played, sure. I don't think it's the strongest in the country, but
I beg to sir.
I don't think. I mean,
dude, it's defense in this blood, baby.
I love it. I love your homerness coming out, Aaron. I really do appreciate it.
Well, honestly, I mean,
I'm getting a lot of negativity from some not ball knowers, so I appreciate a ball knower like you, Aaron. Aaron,
it's just so ridiculous.
I know. Speaking of ball knowers, we do have a guest.
Oh sure. Let's bring him on.
From Addicted to Quack. That is right,
ladies and gentlemen.
Hythloday.
Woo, 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 woo.
How's it going, Hythloday?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing good. There's that time in a game, like you're starting it off and you're like, oh, the Ducks are favorite. I'm ready for this blowout. This will feel especially good. We're at home. We got week 1 out of our system. It'll be fine. And then the game chaos ensues. And then you just abandon all of that and go, I don't care what we look like anymore. I just want us to win the game. Yeah. And I got to that pretty quickly. And I honestly, by the end of it, I was just happy that we finally beat Boise State because I could not.
I was like, I'm glad this game is over.
I'm just so dang glad that like Noah Whittington didn't cost us something terrible or something like that.
Dude, he would have been benched for the rest of the season.
No, probably
my
not.
team,
But
on my team,
on your on fantasy. I mean, on
D&D.
Yeah. But Hythloday, we just got past a pretty crazy game. I guess a historic win, our first win against the Boise State football team. What were some of the first things that were flying at you? Obviously, the O-line has been talked about a lot. It's something we'd like to get your opinion on. How did a lot of these people grade out? I know there was some new additions and stuff to the rotation. What are your general thoughts? I guess we'll start in that department.
On the offensive line?
Yeah.
Well, the very first thing I should say is that not only did they, play another dude, Nishad Strother, entered the game, but they played multiple different configurations of the line. So in the first game, we basically saw one configuration only, which was of the three guard spots. The two tackle spots have not changed at all in the last 2 weeks. It's always been Josh Connerly on the left, and Johnny Cornelius on the right. Three guard spots. In the first game, it was always Marcus Harper at left guard, Charlie Pickard, the practice squad guy, snapping specialist at center, and then Iapani Laulaulu, who had been a rotational guard in 2023, but then when Jackson Powers Johnson was injured, became the center, was in line to be the center. But then, due to injury situation, had moved over and been playing right guard in the opener against Idaho. So that was the configuration, the entire game against Idaho the previous week. In this game, it started out that way for the first two drives. But then...
Wow. Sure. That makes sense.
But then, they changed it up in the third drive. Nishad Strother came in for the first time all year. He played at left guard. Laulaulu took over at center, and Harper moved over and played right guard, which is, I believe, the first time I've ever seen Harper play right guard. And I also was not expecting to see Strother play at left guard. I was sort of like, what's up with that? Because I have to refresh my memory, but I think Strother played right guard at ECU. So that was okay. That's interesting. Can
I dime in real quick?
Go ahead.
Do you think that was adaptation or planned?
The
switch around after the first two drives.
I think they definitely plan to do it.
Okay.
The he was at left guard at ECU. Never mind. So anyway, that they do that for 3 plays, but that drive was the one that started out with that 67-yard pass to Evan Stewart. So we only got 3 reps with it. That's what's going to be the theme of what I'm about to say here, is that they try out a bunch of different configurations, but each one of them we have so few data points on. And Boise State was throwing so many different blitz patterns, including, and then something significant happens in the second half, which is one of their key players gets ejected for targeting. You don't remember that play?
That's right.
Dillon Gabriel slides. The dude who gets ejected is named Tubner. He's their box safety. Boise State's defensive structure is relatively similar to Oregon's. It looks like a 3-down with an OLB, 2 inside linebackers, and a nickel on the back end defense. The twist being it's technically a dime because one of those 2 ILBs is not a linebacker at all. He's actually a box safety. His name's Tubner. He's like a 6th-year senior. I believe he's their green dot player. He's the guy who has the helmet communications. I think. And he doesn't have a backup. Like he was the Iron Man who plays like no reps. Like I had no idea who his backup was. We found out it was number 41, but that dude only played a couple of reps. Subsequently, Boise State just took the two guys who were rotating at the actual ILB spot, and then played both of those guys next to each other for the rest of the game. So we technically had like 3 different configurations from Boise State, or 5 if you want to get really technical about it. And those, so the pre-post ejection situation creates different blitz patterns, out of Boise State. So in addition to the fact that we have a bunch of different line configurations out of Oregon, we then have pre-post ejection. And so it fragments the data. Like, right. It means, so I know that everybody's like hungry for answers about what's the best offensive line configuration. Like, what of all the offensive line configurations graded out the best? And like, there is an answer to that question, but it's like, it's
because it worked successfully on 2 drives we're supposed to take.
Or no, it worked successfully on like 1 play, and it's like you can't hang your hat on that,
Well, this just makes me have to ask the question, do the coaches know which one is the best one? Like, why so many looks?
That's they're
is it
probably
a personnel issue for safety.
I'm sure they're experimenting.
Sure.
I mean, that's speculation, of course, but I'm fairly sure that's what is going on, is experimentation.
It seems nutty to be experimenting in week 2.
I mean, we're in a nutty situation, Aaron. I didn't finish the recitation, but I mean, it goes on like that. I won't do the whole recitation, but like they try a bunch of different solutions. With 4 different guys who can play different interior guard spots. Harper on the left and right, Struther coming in and out, and then Pickard or Laulaulu at center, and then Pickard and then Laulaulu either at center or at right guard, and so that creates I forget what the number of permutations are, but there's a bunch, and they try them all out. And it's clearly experimentation. And the answer to why, experiment, well, I mean, partly it's Oregon since 2020. I believe we were talking about this, on the Oregon Preview podcast, in August. Oregon since 2020 has been doing drive by drive offensive line rotations, like to an extent, like there's nothing new about this. They try to do that for like cross training and backup purposes. And actually, you notice more and more offensive lines around the country are doing that. Boise State did it. I know I've been charting Oregon State. Oregon State does it. It's actually, I think, becoming less and less, the absolute norm that you just pick 5 guys and play them the whole way through. It's actually used, I think a lot of teams are cottoning on to the fact that it's useful to have guys sort of ready to go in case there's an injury or something. So part of it's that, probably, but part of it I think just is clearly experimentation, and just sort of seeing
college, like, it's time for it,
because like Struther's coming back from an injury, and maybe it might be testing like, okay, where are you at, that sort of thing. But here's the other thing, Aaron, is that this is I'm referring to me too in this. This is completely unprecedented. I have never, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm going to be like year 15 for me of, charting teams like entire seasons and trying to make predictions about, how they're going to go in the future, building out statistical, I do data analysis. Data analysis is the best, way to predict performance. You gather data, you construct a model, you retrodictively test that model to figure out, how it's going to work. You gather new data, you feed that into the model, and then it spits out, predictions and then you continue to fine tune. You get a pretty happy model. You're right 98% of the time. Like my batting average is phenomenal. And then you, every once in a while, find something that just completely breaks it, because you're like, whoa, that's never, ever, ever, ever happened before. Black swan events, in data analysis, we literally, that's what we call it in data analysis, is black swan events, where it's like completely outside the model. you cannot, so the black swan event of 2024 is there is absolutely no reason at all to expect Oregon's offensive line performance to be bad. Like, none of the predictors are in place for it. They didn't have a coaching change. They don't have an offensive scheme change. They don't have an offensive line coach change. Nothing. They brought back, everybody who's playing has played before. They did not. They're not starting transfer portal guys.
There was the injury preseason, but that is like one injury, and you'd assume
right
recruiting like this, and
and on top, right, and it's not like they plugged in for the guy who's missing, a guy who was like, even if that, like, lots of teams have dealt with that. That's not something that the model has no experience with dealing with. The model has dealt with that 100 times before, and it just says, well, who are you plugging in? If you're plugging in a dude who just transferred in from a different program, I would expect a dip, of this, but that's not what they did. They plugged in, guys who'd been in the program, and so you would expect this performance. And instead, what you got was guys who
falling down.
Yeah, I mean,
literally just on their own sometimes.
Well, you're not joking, Aaron. Like,
no.
Literally falling down. Like,
yes.
and going from this, the strength of Oregon's program for 20 years, since Steve Greatwood was at Oregon, has been, great offensive line play, to now their greatest weakness. Like, I've never seen anything like this before. It is absolutely, but we're like, uncharted territory. Doesn't even begin to capture it. It breaks the model. Like, it's so crazy.
I think I figured it out. I know what it is.
What's that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're on the payroll to keep Vegas odds at bay. That's it. We're on the payroll, baby.
Like, it's all a rope-a-dope.
Yeah,
they're all taking dives. This is
we got to keep it close to keep the fucking bettors happy.
We're winning. We're just betting on the other team to cover. Is what you're saying.
This is what happens when you
Chicago
go to the
White
Big
Sox.
Ten.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, we still wouldn't need to keep these games so close to have the other team cover.
What's funny, though, is that, that's the other thing I can tell you from statistical analysis, and you don't have to just take my word for it. If you go look at Stats of Wars, his weekly post on, how bad we get beat this week, where he takes the EP. He doesn't use success rate, he uses EPA, but it's basically like, it's a similar comparison where he just takes, your how well did you do each play, how well did you beat your opponent do each play, and it often produces surprising results versus the score. And like, anyway, the Oregon versus Boise State's like the 6th best performance of the week, and it's and same thing in my charting, and in my colleague Tristan Holmes' charting, which just went up like an hour before I hopped on the podcast.
Yeah, good stuff from Tristan, by the way. I need to hit him up and say good job.
Oregon. Here's what the cumulative numbers are. The efficiencies need to perk up. The efficiencies are not great, but like on a yards per play basis, Oregon gets 7.5 adjusted yards per play cumulative, which is pretty a fantastic good number.
Yeah, Lanning wanted 5.5, right?
He wanted 5.5 yards per carry. He got 4.89. Which is pretty good, but the passing numbers were phenomenal. He got 10.21 yards per pass attempt, which is an elite number. And you add them up, because there's not enough, because Oregon had 2 special teams touchdowns in this game. There's actually not enough yards plays from scrimmage to in my opinion, to do. I use 20 as the threshold, and there's not they're good and bad. There's about 15 good and bad. There's about 60 plays meaningful, and Oregon has about 15 good pass, 15 bad pass, 15 good run, 15 bad run. So it's like, this isn't quite enough for good statistical analysis. But if you do it cumulatively, it's 7.5 yards per play and 20% both run and pass. So both, explosiveness, which is fantastic. Like, they are blowing Boise State away in yardage and explosiveness. It's hit or miss on efficiency, which is why you get these
2 fumbles.
Well, and then,
oh my God, dude.
Right. That's the thing, is like, and people also want to suggest that like when they're amateur, folks who are trying to control for these things or suggest that like 2 special teams touchdowns and then losing the turnover battle 0-2 balance each other out. They don't, because special teams touchdowns and turnovers are not equal counterbalancing things. If they had the same number of special teams touchdowns and the same number of turnovers, that would balance each other out, because a turnover is double whammy, right? It takes the ball out of your hands and gives it to the opponent, whereas a special teams touchdown is just a no sweat touchdown.
Yeah.
Right. Like it just means that your offense didn't have to take the field and drive the field.
And your defense is going to be extra tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like they affect the games in fairly different ways. So like the fumbles are far more significant. Yeah, the fumbles are far more significant than the special teams touchdowns. The special teams touchdowns, just if you look at the statistical production of what Oregon's offense was doing, the special teams touchdowns just accelerate what was already happening. The fumbles reverse what was happening. The fumbles are far more significant. So that you can't just say, well, those things cancel each other out. No, that is not the case.
You'd be an idiot if you did. Can I ask you?
Yeah, go.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, because this is something that is hard for me. I've watched this game twice, but it's still hard for me to really wrap my brain around where, so Dillon Gabriel, I think Dillon Gabriel played a pretty great game. Not perfect. Who is perfect? Nobody. But like, it's funny for me to see people throwing shade at like idiots throwing shade at Dillon Gabriel, who was 18 of 21, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. But I wanted to know if there were moments that you noticed where, he could have helped out his offensive line. He maybe could have called something out. Maybe the game was moving too fast for him where he didn't notice somebody free run or anything. Were there moments where Dillon Gabriel was hurting his own protection in that way? Or is it mainly, no, this is a fault on the offensive line, just not getting me enough time?
It's hold on one second.
I know that must be a hard one to kind of gauge.
No, I mean, I understand the question that you're asking. I just need 1 second to run the data query.
Take your time.
Query.
I mean, Tristan was the one who wrote this article, so that's what
Great
we're doing
Tristan
this
Holmes.
He did a great job writing the article, and he's like, I think over the bye week, which is coming up after the Oregon State game, I have him write a statistical write up of because he's like a no joke statistical analyst. I mean, that's what he's literally a math professor.
Oh my God, awesome!
He's going to write up a like a real data analysis of the offensive line performances just once we get more data on it.
Hell yeah, yeah. In my
it's
head,
about 70-30. I would say on in terms of where bad passing or inefficient passing plays come from, it's about 70-30 on offensive line. Actually blocking, a couple of those are actually tight end blocks, but blocking versus or perimeter blocks, which includes some wide receiver bad perimeter blocking. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me break that down a little.
Yeah, take your time.
Sorry. In terms of, I need to exclude the pass was got off, but then subsequently the perimeter blocking wasn't good, because that doesn't answer your question. Okay. Now, more like 2/3, 1/3. Sorry, I need to revise that. In terms of why, if the reason that the passing play failed is that either he took a sack or he had to scramble or the throw was errant due to pressure. So that bucket of ineffective plays. The cause of said pressure, about 2/3 bad blocks from offensive line, a couple tight ends, about 1/3 is Gabriel is involved. Like it's not just Gabriel's an innocent. There is some quarterback involvement in no, dude, you needed to, you should have flipped around to the right, not to the left, or, some better pocket presence, would have, or like, that's not your hot route. That is, So yes, there, it's not I saw online some people who were like pining for Bo Nix, and like I understand because like there's one of the things that I thought that Bo Nix was elite at was escaping pressure. It's just that he didn't have to very often. His line protection was so good. It's just like it was like a handful of reps all year, that I could put in my articles to be like, wow, this was really amazing the way that he dealt with that. It's cool that he has that skill because he never has to use it with this line. With Gabriel, it's unfortunate because like I don't think he quite has the same ability to do that, and it turns out he sure would have come in handy. So like I do have some criticism, for that. I've got some. There are, like there's one of the sacks that he takes on that 3rd and 23 play, although it's a 3rd and 23 stupid penalty because of holding. I mean, that's the other thing. There's a bunch of penalties in this game.
Yeah,
just
the amount of errors we committed on offense was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, and stuff like that. The unfortunate Trayshawn Holden, like when he pushed the guy who pushed him out of bounds, but it's like, well, we're catching you. Like, oh, dude, man.
You don't. So there's two different plays.
Yeah.
So there's two different plays where the blitz is coming in, and he either needs to climb the pocket or flip to the right, and instead he tries flipping out to the left, and it's like that's not where you should go. And Nix had a better sense of like which direction to flip out to.
Also,
and by the way,
in the system,
another fantastic quarterback that Oregon's had in its history, Justin Herbert, was like terrible at this. But like Herbert's sense of which way to flip when pressure was getting through was atrocious. It's not like it prevented him from being a fantastic quarterback, and going on to great NFL career. It's just, hey man, like sometimes quarterbacks have that problem. And if you're just asking me like as a data analysis question, like what's up with his sense, in this game there were some times where it was just like, Dillon, you're contributing to this by making the wrong decision when pressure is getting through. Now what would really, and I mean I wrote this in my article about Dillon Gabriel back in March when I analyzed all of his Oklahoma film. Like I was very clear, like the reason that I was expecting Dillon Gabriel to, go from a 172 passer at Oklahoma in 2023, which is a fantastic number, to having an even better season at Oregon was that I was expecting him to have better offensive line protection at Oregon than at Oklahoma. I don't know if it's looking that way now because of the Black Swan event, what would really help him is just to not have to deal with, this like the blitz is getting through.
I think the other thing is it's just like when someone's just untouched sacking you, and I forget if it was like back-to-back sacks, but I remember there was like 2 sacks in one drive or something. That's gotta that's gotta get to you mentally, where you're like, where normally you would have stayed in the pocket for 1 extra second or something. Yeah. Maybe you're bailing quick, or maybe you're doing like it's got to get to you eventually.
Well,
he just needs. It really does feel like this whole offense is like, if you just give the man 1 more damn second, back there, like 1 more second.
Literally, that's all he needs.
I mean, you're not. Yes,
which is not not like a guarantee that'll happen this season, but
like all of that was in my none of that, like none of what you just said is a surprise to me at all. It's exactly what I wrote about him back in March when when I wrote my Dillon Gabriel article. What's shocking is that he's not getting it, like because like that's the Black Swan of this, and so it's why I thought it was appropriate for you to lead off. And it was like, there's one question about this season, which is what the flip is up with this offensive line. The weird thing, to go back to it, is in terms of the player grades, is that because I believe you asked me about that, it is that I was kind of panicking in the Idaho game because Cornelius, the right tackle, his grades were so bad, and his grades got better in this game. Good. Which that's happy. Lalauulu's grades got better, although they tried him at so many different spots. I'm a little nervous about that. I'm nervous about the data simply because because of the fragmentation thing that I was discussing earlier.
Makes sense.
Struther's grades look great.
It felt like there was a
that.
difference when he was out there. It's all I'll say from a dumb brain perspective. Looking at this, like I was less afraid a little bit. Yeah.
Pickard's grades are not great. Like if Struther, like it adds up to if Struther is ready to go, they should probably pull. Like again, I want to stress that it's one game. They had an ejection to a key player. The data is fragmented, and so this is not conclusive. And if they don't do this, I understand. Against Oregon State, if they don't do this, I will understand. If they continue to do the experimentation because they want more data, I will totally get it. Or in the alternate, if they do what I'm about to suggest, and there are problems, it doesn't. Then that doesn't necessarily mean anything that it was a bad idea, because it could be problems because of the fragmentation. I'm just saying what the data from the fragmented data from this game suggests is probably time to pull Pickard and go with Poncho snapping the ball and Struther and another guard. But here's the thing that's like concerning is that the guy whose grades took a nosedive in this game, whose grades were okay against Idaho, and I was willing to just chalk it up to rust, was Marcus Harper. Like Harper was about 14%, which, hey, last year he was under 10%. I wasn't worried about him. And then they're up at like 14 against Idaho. And I'm like, that's not the most problematic. It was real bad. It was like around the 20s for Alalaulu and Cornelius. So those are the guys I was freaking out about. Harper, I was going to be like, rust, maybe. It like jumped up to like, 18, 20%, for Harper. Like he looked terrible. He looked terrible against Boise State. I mean, just like qualitatively, the end of it, watching the film, I mean, he looked like a goof. He was lunging at guys. He wasn't bending his knees. He was getting blown off. Like, I mean, just bad. And I was just like, what's going on? Like, I'm seeing regression between week 1 and week 2. Like, what? So like, I still think there's something. I still think there's like, I don't think this is explained by, it's just they had a walk-on at center and it messed with their, rhythms and blitz protections and communications and gelling and so forth. I don't quite buy that explanation. I think there's something like, I'm going to wait for more data but the concern that I have is that there's something stinky going on in Oregon's offensive line room. And it may need to get deloused, aired out. Like, I don't like, I guess I'm just in such uncharted territory here. I've never seen offensive line regression before. Like, I keep a list of offensive line coaches with their developmental coefficient. Like, I literally have I probably like the only person in the world who maintains an actually data-driven list of the quality of different offensive line coaches around the country. And the basis of it is the following, that dudes come in from high school, their technique is bad because the guys who go from a high school player to being a Division I college player are just the biggest dude on the field, right? And the way that they were successful in high school is that they were just the biggest guy on the field and they were pushing dudes around. Well, congratulations, you were big enough to play D1 ball. Now it's time to teach you how to play D1 ball, right? And so what offensive line coaches' jobs is to do is to unlearn all the bad habits they developed in high school, break them down to the level of infants, and then, develop them into good linemen. And so that's what because like they all come in with terrible habits. And so what I'm watching over the course of years of grading guys and watching their film is I want to see the bad habits go out the door and I want to see the good habits get developed. And so a good coach is a coach who I see that technique progress being made year over year with linemen. And a bad coach is one in which I do not see that progress being made. What right? And so like that's what my development coefficient is. Guys who are good coaches have a high degree of improvement, and guys who are bad coaches, it's like, what, that guy is still playing like a high school player when he's a senior, so you must be a bad coach because you didn't train the bad stuff out of your dudes, right?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
None of them have negative coefficients. Like none of them make their players worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never seen that, but like that's what I'm trying to say. I just went on that whole rant in order to, the punchline was none of them had negative coefficients. I've never seen a negative coefficient before. Coach Terry, if this keeps going, Coach Terry is going to be the first offensive line coach ever in this whole history, of which I've got 134 names on this list, like is going to be the only one who's a negative coefficient. It's going to be bonkers. Like I've never seen this before.
Hith, we got a bunch of picks to do, but we'd be remiss to not talk about the defense a bit here.
Yeah, come on, we got to talk about like the good stuff too.
Yeah, Aaron and I have been saying like I through 2 weeks, yes, these have been like nail biters, but it is kind of taken away from like, I like this defense. This defense is showing up.
Just the score. I know the scoreboard, but like. So I was talking, the offense, 7.5 yards per play, 20% explosiveness rate. Boise State, 4.64 yards per play. Terrible. 9.46 rate of explosive plays. Terrible.
Jaunty is an NFL back.
Yeah, I know. He's the best running back they're going to face all year. Sorry, Travion Henderson,
and you take out his 70 yarder or whatever, and it gets to reasonable
that's
numbers. It's
he breaks off one of them, which, like, of course he does. He's going to break off one of those every year. He's literally the first time I've ever seen Kobe Savage, get beat on a, play like that. I watched 2 years of his tape at Kansas State. Ollie Gordon wasn't doing that to him, and Jaunty did. The reigning Doak Walker winner, right?
I think the sudden change has hurt the defense, like in 2 games. Too.
Obviously, sudden change. That's something Tristan noted in his article. But like the pass defense, oh my God, it's 71.43% efficiency. Defensive efficiency. It's 3.61 yards per pass attempt for Boise State.
And they were trying to. They were really airing the ball out in the second half, like hoping. Yeah. I really thought about what you said, Hith, when you were saying Hythloday is that Boise State's the kind of team that they know who they have in Jaunty, and they know that he's going to get going, and then the passing game they're going to hope to catch you sleeping, and it really did feel like we passed the test of like he never really did. Like the secondary was pretty, or it was just a bad pass, or he didn't have enough time. And so the pass was bad. Yeah.
Everything everything in my Boise State preview, like literally every word in my Boise State preview from last Friday, came true about like when they're supposed to passing, it's all on 1st and 10. If they have to go to 3rd and long, they aren't going to connect. And literally every single one of their 10-yard passes, come on 1st and 10. Actually, if there's one dude that I have complaints about in this game on the defense, it's Jabbar Muhammad. Like he has a couple of good plays, but he also has a couple of bad plays. Yeah, he has the most negative grades in this game. Like he has back-to-back like 21-yard plays that he gives up because he's in the wrong position, where he gets his like hips flipped. He's not the only one, but he's the one who has the like multiple negative grades.
He's a very eager player too. Sometimes,
yeah. He makes a guess like early in the route. And if his guess is wrong, he'll leave his guy open.
Brandon Johnson was a pleasure to watch for a lot of it too. I know
Brandon Johnson's fantastic. Like he's just such a super smart guy. His bit of a problem is that his top end speed is not the he was a low 3-star coming out of high school. His top end speed is not the fastest, and so if a dude really gets a step on him, like he's gonna so there's a play where he gives up a he gives up like an 11-yard out route.
I remember that. Yeah.
He sort of gets juked one-on-one. And it's like, occasionally he's going to give up one of those because he's not like a supremo athlete. Like that was one where I was sort of like, ooh, I wish Dalen Austin was in on that play instead of Johnson. But there's a bunch of other plays in this game where I think, Brandon Johnson makes the play because he's Brandon Johnson. And like, he's like, there's a bunch of screens that Boise State goes to that Johnson's like, he's on it, man. Like he's totally on it.
Also,
so yeah,
Caldwell's like speed and power really.
Oh
There was
yeah,
a couple of times where I was like, "How is he moving that fast?" Like we've had guys that big, but oh my god.
Yeah, there's a play in which I think Caldwell causes the video to tear, like he's like he destroys the codec of the 4K.
I thought I was going crazy until they actually said something at the end of the broadcast where it's like, "Oh, sorry, it's been going black for
middle out, dude. You got to compress that video stream middle out if you're going to go live. We all know it."
Exactly. I continue to be interested in the way that they keep flipping back and forth Caldwell and Harmon. That's interesting. They continue to really open the floodgates in terms of everybody that they're playing off of the edge. But they're really only playing Birch on the big end spot. That continues to interest me. I think Keon Ware-Hudson is playing at a higher level than I was expecting him to. I'd sort of been like, this guy sort of hit his ceiling, and then he pushed through actually and has been playing a little higher level than I was sort of expecting. Devin Jackson had a great game. I think they were playing him more because they thought that his speed would be helpful to getting to Jonty. And there's a couple of plays. In fact, I think Tristan put one in his article where it's like, I think Jackson's the only guy who catches Jonty on this team. Jacobs is playing, but they're being limited with how they're like, a little bird, like, okay, so in the first game, Bossa had an ankle injury, and a little birdie told me, well, a lot of the reason why Jacobs was they try to pair up Bossa and Jacobs. And so if Bossa's, sitting down, then Jacobs is sitting down. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Well, Bossa was back and healthy and he was playing a ton in this game, but then, Jacobs, wasn't. And so like, I sort of think that, wasn't the case. Now, maybe that was another specialty thing. Maybe that was, like they wanted Jackson because of how fast he is and they wanted Betcher because of how hard he hits. So maybe that was a specialty thing. And the specialty that Jacobs has, because he's lanky and built like a spider, and they want him in on like the mintiest of downs, which is what I've noticed when I look at the player substitution patterns. It's like they put him in on like 3rd and 7, when they're thinking like it's or like 3rd and 5, like they're thinking it's going to be a short pass for a conversion, and they want a guy who's built like a defensive back to try to stop hitch routes. And so I think that's sort of what they're doing, that it's less about Jacobs getting sidelined. This is a guess. We don't have enough data on this yet, but I'm sort of speculating here that it's less about they've got 2 starters, and it's more like they've got one starter who's Bossa, their green dot player, and then they're rotating through different second linebackers, the other linebacker spot, in terms of like what your specialty is. Like Betcher for hitting, Jackson for running, and Jacobs for short pass defending. Like that's kind of a guess, but it seems to be the pattern. I want more data on that, but it's interesting. Kind of like how they play different defensive back configurations in different situations, which again is something that they're continuing. Like they bring out the dime package in different, configurations. So that's something that I'm going to keep my eye on as sort of an interesting wrinkle. They were not doing that last year.
Gotcha.
But like, a bunch of every I was so proud of my Boise State articles. There's like literally every word that I wrote, like the Boise State's dependence on explosive plays and explosive drives, like where their explosive plays, come from, when they try to pass, when their passing plays stall out, that like, or on, when Boise State's on defense, like exactly the dude that I, signaled out is going to get a defensive pass interference penalty, got a defensive pass interference penalty on that final drive where Oregon kicks the game-winning field goal. It's just like every single dude that I called is just like Yeah, I mean, I did not write a single word in my Boise State preview that did not come true. Like,
I'll
it's
end with
crazy.
that. I love Atticus Sappington. I mean, vibes wise, his look really made me think of Camden Lewis, but I did love that he's got some confidence. You know, he was jumping up, he was ready to go.
Was it
the point
you
after,
or was it somebody else that somebody commented that, like, as soon as I saw him on the sideline with sleeve tats, I was like, I instantly became confident.
Someone said that
like,
too. I saw that too, but it wasn't me. Yeah.
I'm really glad that your final note was to end with him, because I also wanted to end with him.
Let's hear it.
To say that he's on watch.
Because the point
I love his confidence, because clearly he can win games for us, which is important.
Was it him who kicked that point after that missed? The
yes.
doinked it?
I think so.
Yes.
I think I had a different.
The boinker on the. I'm pretty sure it was him on that boofed extra point. My God, man.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He kicked it with so much fire that it's like, you don't need to be doing that, dum dum.
Well, he wanted to make the game. He wanted to make the game interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also I was in my head, I was like, okay, if he is an Oregon State plant and he really just came over to sabotage us, he's missing this field goal. He's missing his field goal right now. So I'm glad he's not.
It's just par for the course that we have a kicker that will miss the simple stuff and by proxy make you completely lose all of your hair worried about the important stuff.
Well, he got the important stuff though. He got
That's
it.
right.
We got the win.
God.
We
and
beat
it seems
Boise
like he actually
State.
got it. He just bonked the shit out of that ball inappropriately. It was just way too much power.
It'll happen. It's very Camden Lewis.
Now, they weren't real tattoos, right? It was like the shirts you wear.
I'm sure they're real. What are you talking about? You think Sappington's some sap that's wearing a fake sleeve? Come on.
I mean, I didn't notice it, but if I were to guess, he seems the type to, wear like the skin tight, kind of see-through shirt that looks like tattoos on it.
You could fill a 2-hour podcast with things you didn't notice, and that's what I plan to do on today's episode.